Okay, so today we have something to talk about that's very important this time of year. The weather is breaking, and we just went from record cold temperatures to new record high temperatures in our county in northeastern United States. And I'm going to do a review of this drinker that I'm going to use for open feeding, and also I'm going to show you how to use it inside your hive. This is from BeeSmartDesigns.com. And this is an improved version. There are lots of features here that keep the bees out of the nectar and the sugar water that you're going to put in it. It has a nice raised lip here around the circumference that did not exist before, and that's to keep the bees from climbing up in and getting into that sugar water reservoir. And here's the mechanism that allows the gravity feed to dispense the nectar down into the reservoir base. It's pretty simple. There's a spring-loaded release here, and then there's a nice soft seal that goes on the inside. And they've also increased the number of little bars that stick up around the edges that also will prevent bees from being able to get into this reservoir. It seals nice, and it's nicely made, actually. This thing is nice heavy plastic. And again, here's the mechanism. We're just looking it over, and I'll show you how it goes into the base. And once it's pressed down, of course, it uses the weight of the nectar to hold this down. The release pops up, and it gravity feeds into the trough down below. Also, the entrance here is blocked off too and has little appendages sticking down that prevent honeybees from getting in through the trough if the water should get completely low. So this is good for water or nectar, of course. I'm using sugar water right now because we're still in early spring. The material's nice and heavy, nice and thick. I think this is going to last for a long time. These are available on Amazon. I'm going to give you a link down in the video description. And again, just a close-up. Make sure and wash it off first with water. There were some little bits and pieces from fabrication that were in there. Seal it up nice, and then of course it's distinctive as to how it should line up. And you'll notice that I've drawn with a black Sharpie here on the lip of it to show, so that even when we can look down from the top, we'll see exactly where the dispensing side is. Good complete set of instructions, some cautionary stuff, how to install the feeder, maintenance, cleaning, stuff like that. Very important here, and why I drew the black marks on is to make sure those black marks go to the low end. So if your hive is tilting forward, make sure the black marks are on the low side so it doesn't leak out. It's about 10 inches in diameter. Good size. This is going to fit into a medium super box. And it just gravity seats on here. Make sure it's nice and level, or as level as you can get it. It's about 6 inches tall, so again, fits into a medium super. I'm going to take it outside and use it for open feeding because there's a lot going on in the bee yard right now. Going from record cold to record heat, the bees are all going to come out and they're going to be hungry. And so when we put this outside, you want to make sure that the scout bees that are heading out have places to go and things to get. And that's why we're going to open feed right now. We're given just the details from the embossing on the bottom of the trough here. BeeSmart design, again, made in America. And moving around, it comes in a pack of 2. Here we are outside. Once you fill it with sugar water or regular water if you want to, seal it up and it doesn't leak. So pretty good. You can carry it by the handle. It holds a gallon. And that's pretty much it. It's ready to go. There's little drips on it because I did wash it off first. And I'm going to use this, as I mentioned before, for open feeding. I want those scout bees, instead of robbing each other out, to be finding sources of sugar water, again, this time of year, because it's highly likely that we're going to freeze again right away. I want to make sure that the sugar content is high, so roughly the 2 to 1, something near that. Notice here all the activity on these bee landing boards. This is not the time to take away your entry reducers. Keep them on, because there's a very high potential that the stronger colonies will now rob out the weaker colonies, and we want to protect them. I know it's nice and warm. We actually hit 70 degrees here, and that caused all of the clusters to break out. The scouts are out. There's a lot of hovering around the hive bodies too, and that's because we have a lot of new bees in here that don't know their way around, and they're doing orienteering flights. And if you look at the entrance too, how do we know this is not a robbing situation? Look at all the activity and how many bees are pouring out. But did you see that one? It just pulled out a dead bee. Bees that are robbing a colony do not clean up that colony. You would see a lot of detritus and other materials that are just dropped as it's being robbed. These bees are just active and foraging and taking advantage of this warm spurt. So we want to get as much carbohydrate into these hives as we can now. because it's going to freeze again. And this is the thing that happened last year when we went from freezing to a warm-up. The bees got active when we had this warm-up, and then it froze again, and the bees had already started laying eggs. And once that queen starts to lay eggs, the cluster is going to sit on that frame where the brood is, and they won't move. And that's why they starve out without moving the cluster to where the honey is. So we want to take an opportunity to really boost them with carbohydrates whenever they have a warm snap like this. We want to give them plenty to get. We want to give the foragers plenty to do other than scout out other hives and attack them. So we're open feeding, but I'm also going to show you how the system goes inside. I'll just let you sit and watch these bees for a minute. And see this? Look at them pulling out the dead bees that are inside the colony here. So they're doing a rapid cleanup. This is one of my strongest colonies. If you may remember from the fall, going into fall, they actually tried to swarm, and we managed to stop the swarm and keep them here. So this particular colony is extremely strong, and probably one that we're going to be working with this year as far as making splits from it, because they're just so well acclimated to the cold here in the northeastern United States, and they're going to do extremely well in the coming summer. So this is definitely a colony that I plan to work with extensively this year. And here I got the camera so close that there's actually heat coming out and it fogged the lens. So it's just, there are a flurry of activity. As I said, it went all the way up into the high 60s here. It went down in the valley below us. It was actually up to 71. So we hit a record high, and that's what inspired them all to come out of their colonies and start seeking around. But the weather's going to change, and it's going to go bad again. In fact, tonight it's going to drop into the 30s. So watch the weather. At the time that we did this, we had a 12-mile-an-hour wind, 65 degrees Fahrenheit outside. Like I said before, that's going to change dramatically, but when it does warm up like this, you want to make sure and get sugar water feed out there for the bees so they have something to bring in. And we want to offset their desire, of course, to overcome smaller, weaker colonies. Don't pull out those entry reducers. Keep them small, because this time of year they still need to be able to protect themselves. They have not built up yet. And I had no problems with the leaking that some people reported on these, as long as you keep it level. If you can't keep it perfectly level, remember I put these black marks on there. You want to keep the black marks on the low end because it's gravity fed, and that will stop it from leaking out completely. Now I'm going to show you on a 10 frame box exactly how it might fit in there. You're going to put it right on top of the inner cover, and you're going to make sure not to obstruct that hole so the bees can come through and feed without leaving the colony. And this is, again, now we have a medium super, just the box around it, to show you that it is small enough to fit in there. So you'll have a gallon of sugar water in it. I'm very confident that it's not going to leak inside. And we can fit also 3 frames of drawn comb if you want to give those bees something to cling to, and if they want to do some storage right there, they can. So it does fit nicely. It's a pretty good setup. I'm happy with it, I would say. And then, of course, you just leave that empty super on there, put a cover on it, and protect it from the weather. Don't forget to put weights on it or strap it down. So thanks for watching this video, and I hope that we don't have a repeat of last year, which is when we got like a solid week of really warm weather. In fact, it extended into almost a 2-week period. The bees came out, the queens started laying, and then we had a cold snap, so we returned to winter. And then the bees often died in place, and people lost up to 50-60% of their colonies. Take care of your bees. Happy beekeeping. Get a good drinker out there and in the hives. Thanks for watching.